live stream with Dr. Guns.
Hello, everybody. I tried to play a welcome jingle this time to see if it works. So probably it does. Hopefully it does, rather. So hi, everybody, and welcome to our special live stream on LLM and other types of master's dissertations. So we're going to talk about the variety of things that are going to help you with your preparation. This is a live stream that has invited like a variety of students that I'm in contact with and other people who are thinking about doing a longer piece of work. And we might have some people in the audience already that are from some of the institutions that I'm working in, or we might have some people in the audience that are just here out of general interest because they're preparing to write a longer piece of work, like a bigger piece of coursework or a dissertation for their master's program or something like this. Feel free to put a message in the chat and let us know what your interest is and what sort of project you're working on at the moment. And then we can try and have a bit of a discussion connecting the information that people give us in the chat. So it's going to get us going. So thank you very much for joining me here today. It's lovely to see some people live in the chat. And remember that if you're watching this on the replay, you can communicate by putting messages in the comments that are down in the description of this video. Right. So first of all, what are we actually trying to do? We are trying to put together a longer piece of work. Now, most of students who are engaged in a longer degree program, they've already sat through some coursework and assessments. So this is probably some of the people in the audience already. Let me know in the comments how much you've enjoyed writing your coursework. Go on. Or give me a shocked emoji if the process of going through your coursework was not as pleasant as you thought it was going to be. And perhaps we can have the opportunity to discuss why not. Now, there are some fundamental differences between working on a defined piece of work that has a small word limit, something that is 3,000 words or 4,000 words or 5,000 words, and writing a longer piece of work that is primarily research-based. So this is the key reason why we're here today and why I wanted to talk to you about this, to highlight the differences in terms of organization, in terms of preparation, in terms of attention, and in terms of attitude that one needs to have in order to successfully produce a longer piece of work. Right, let's start off with some organizational issues. If you have to prepare a longer piece of work, you're going to rely on a greater amount of resources. And it's going to take you significantly more time, not only in conceptualizing what you're working on, but also in organizing your thoughts, trying to come up with a draft table of contents, and slowly populating that draft table of contents with a multiplicity of sources that you're going to find. In order to do this effectively and to start working on that kind of multifaceted preparation, you need to have control and confidence over the topic that you have chosen. Now, some of the people in the audience might already be well into the preparation of their work, so you might already have selected a topic, discussed that topic with your potential supervisor, and you're confident that this is the area that you're working on. But it's possible that we also have people with us today that are in an earlier stage of preparation, and you're still in the process of trying to figure out what the topic you're going to work on is going to be about. This is perfectly fine. And coming up with a topic idea where you meant to generate your own research area and to define your own research area is a very significant part of study. And in producing a longer piece of work like an LLM dissertation or the thesis, LLM is the master's in law, by the way, or something else that takes place, especially at postgraduate level. So let's think about the topic for a second here. I've got some videos that I'm going to put down in the description that you can link to that give you some more specific information on how to select the topic and what is the process that you need to go through in order to achieve that. But I think we can say at this stage that getting an idea on a topic that is viable is key. And how do you determine if the topic that you're selecting for your dissertation is actually viable? So how do you select a topic for your dissertation, for your thesis, for a longer project that is going to be viable. You have to think about what you've done already that interests you and you're willing to spend some time working on. And also, you're going to have to think about whether there are sufficient resources out there to allow you to actually carry out this project. Now, let's think about this for a second. You might have a vague idea that you're interested in something, and you might think it would be nice to research this particular area. For instance, I'm interested in the differences in the research process that produces AI tools like ChatGPT and the various large language models. And I would be interested in figuring out how Microsoft or OpenAI is approaching this process in relation to Google and its own products. So I think this is something that kind of comes up frequently, like how do people conceptualize the research that goes into these significant areas? So I think it's a great idea. I think it's interesting. It might link up with what I'm studying and give me a great opening for a topic. But am I able to actually get this information? I've had some students, perhaps one of the people that I was having this discussion is in the audience here today, about doing research on specific institutions or specific organizations. So if you're thinking Microsoft, you're thinking Google, or you're thinking, say, from the big banks, Barclays, HSBC, Citibank, and you would like to define and construct a research topic that has to deal with them, it might be a great idea. It might be intellectually stimulating. It might be linking up to what you're doing normally for your degree. It might link to some modules that you've done. But can you actually get information if we're talking about information that is internal to these organizations? So think about this for a second. An interesting idea and an interesting topic might not actually be one that allows you access to the resources that you need in order to structure your thesis. So thinking about selecting a topic, you need to think about interest, but you also need to think about access to resources. There is no point selecting a topic for your dissertation, starting to do a draft table of contents, thinking about it, discussing it with people, and then realizing that it is actually impossible for you to gather the resources that you need in order to actually write it. Now, on the other hand, picking something that has got plentiful resources, but actually is of no interest to anybody might not be a particularly good topic either. For instance, I've got some students that are researching, say, competition law implications of various rules and regulations. There is plentiful literature on this. There are textbooks on this. But is this going to be really an interesting dissertation if you simply explaining what the law is in an area, if you haven't found something contentious? It could be interesting for you. I mean, I'm not doubting this, because it could be a new area that you're looking into that you haven't researched before. But it might not be particularly interesting to anybody else. Or reproducing a textbook might not be particularly valuable because people can actually find this information fairly easily, right? So think about when selecting a topic or when defining or clarifying that topic, think about, is it interesting? Is it intellectually stimulating? But also, does it give you access to the resources that you need in order to put it together? Now, we have a few people in the audience now, which is great. So hi, everybody. Put us a message in the chat. We don't have the capacity through this medium to actually talk back to each other using turning on our cameras or using the voice messages. But we have a chat that is on the side of your screen. So feel free to put some messages in the chat and let me know how you're getting along. Or if you just don't want to write anything, just put an emoji there to let me know if everything's still working and if the sound's coming through okay. And if you guys are enjoying this medium. I mean, I find it a lot more pleasant to do live streams on YouTube than to use kind of antiquated systems that are integrated into various university technologies. But, there you go. That's me. So if you're liking this, give us hit the like button or give us some sort of emoji in the chat. Right. Okay. Thank you. We've got a thumbs up right there. Good. It means that I'm coming through. Okay. So these are like a couple of ideas about selecting a topic, but I'm also mindful that quite a lot of the people who are approaching this at this point in time, because now if you're watching this on the replay, never mind the weather, this is actually the summer, right? So we are the beginning of July here in London. Of course, it could be November or it could be anything, but there you go. So for those of you who are approaching this in the middle of the summer or at the beginning of the summer period, you're probably well into your preparation of the topic. So perhaps we can move on. As I said, there are some videos down in the description that can help you with topic selection, but we can actually move on and think about how we are progressing with our dissertation writing and research once we have selected the topic. One of the few things that are inevitable when you're doing a longer piece of work and you're engaging in some sort of research are the research skills themselves. Now, I know that academics like myself keep banging on about the research skills and the ability to research and find stuff, but that doesn't necessarily translate to the people who have to carry out this work. And on occasion, I'm afraid, research support and methodology classes that we offer you guys are not particularly useful, or maybe the use of those classes doesn't translate. So you can give me a sad emoji if you've sat through research methods classes and you didn't find them useful. I'm not gonna tell anybody. However, research skills are actually crucial when it comes to writing the thing. What do I mean by research skills? I mean the ability to actually locate relevant background information that can tell you what is going on so you can understand what's happening, and then you have the capacity to express this for your intended audience, right? So if we don't find the information, then we cannot actually go through the next step of collating this information and starting to say something and writing something within our own dissertation. Now, if you are in a law school, like most of the audience probably is, we've been banging on for ages about the legal databases. Now, I'm going to tell you a little harsh truth here. Legal databases are absolutely terrible in finding stuff unless you already know what you're looking for. So I know, no offense to any of the people that are working into these tools, because I know some of them, so sorry about this. The capabilities for keyword searches in the legal databases are still very poor. I know that some of them are integrating now AI tools that are going to help you locate resources more effectively, but we are not there yet. So if you access Westlaw or Lexis or any of the similar legal databases and you start doing keyword searches, you will be amazed as to how useless it is. It's as if the tools, up until recently, it's as if the tools were designed to give you stuff that are totally random and totally opposite from the stuff that you're actually looking for. So personally, I don't get it how it is this bad. I don't get it. I don't get it how Google can actually give you stuff straight away, but if you do a search within Westlaw or Lexis, you're going to get random things. So with this in mind, how do you react? You look for the stuff that you need using external things. And then once you need to jump through a paywall, then you go to use the legal databases. So if your research is a black letter law type research, this means that you're looking for legal resources, cases, statutory material, opinions of judges, or academic commentary that is very sort of doctrinal and is very contained within the law. Then what I would do to save myself some time, I would look through search engines or AI tools, on which I'm going to come back in a moment. And then once I've done this and I found the resource that I'm looking for, if I realize that this resource is sitting behind the paywall, then I would go through the legal databases to get access to that resource. I recommend, or at least what we used to do till now, but I still recommend it, is using Google Scholar. If you're familiar with Google Scholar, give me an emoji or something in the chat so I know that you guys know what I'm talking about. Google Scholar is a specialized version of the Google search engine that targets its results within academic commentary, the things that have been published in journals or in official magazines or in official publications or books or things like this. So surely you guys have heard before about Google Scholar, right? The great thing about Google Scholar is that it will not give you the multiplicity of results that you will get out of a normal search engine. It will contain the results that you're finding. And if you have already on the browser that you're using logged into the university system and you're logged into the library, then within the list of Google results, you will have a URL that you can actually click that is going to get you to the resource, even if the resource is sitting behind a paywall. Right? That's very important, because one of the problems that students have when doing longer pieces of work that require them to generate a lot of their own research is that they find the resource that they would like, but then they cannot access the resource because it's behind the paywall. Now, a little bit of an alert here. Pay attention. Never pay for everything, for anything, right? You never pay for stuff. Don't do it. The university has already paid for you. So if anybody has got any doubts about this, you let me know right now. You never pay anything for access. We have prepaid everything for you. So if you're trying to access an article and it says, click here, pay £40 to access the article, you're looking at the wrong place. Go through the link that says access this via your institution, and you will find that you have access to the article for free. Now, another little trick. On the off chance that the university does not give you access, or your institutional or library subscription does not give you access to the resource that you're after, look for the same title on Google again, and you might find a pre-publication version of that is available for free. Because what we do, we write something and then we circulate the paper around conferences. So usually we make a version of the paper available for free on things like SSRN. It's one of the kind of online repositories, right? So you might be able, because you're interested in the information, you don't actually care if it is the published version or not, if the information is the same. So you might be able to find from the author that you're looking for the article that you're looking for, you might be able to find that resource somewhere available for free as a conference publication, as opposed to the final article. So again, remember this one key point: never pay a penny for access for study material. All that you paid enough already. All of that stuff is provided by us. Yeah. If in doubt, ask me or ask your supervisor, and we can probably get you the thing that you're looking for free. Now, talking about the research skills and finding the stuff that you need, as we said, you have already determined the area that you're looking for. You've got a title in mind, you've got an area in mind, you've got a sort of draft table of contents, you've probably engaged with some discussions with your supervisor to narrow things down, and now you're going through the process of collecting this material. Using the search engines in the way that I described is going to be helpful. Using the legal databases when you need to get access to stuff that are behind the paywall is going to be helpful. But also, now, in the brand new world of artificial intelligence, you can ask ChatGPT. If you have the subscription version, you will be able to ask ChatGPT, and it will look online and it will give you live, real information on the basis of what it finds online. It might not be able to break through paywalls for you and get you the article for free, but it will certainly tell you where the article is and and indicate where you will be able to find it yourself. If you have access to Copilot, which is the Microsoft AI tool that is again powered by ChatGPT, you might be able to get that stuff as it is connected on the internet without needing to go through additional steps. So most universities that have got a Microsoft 365 license, they have the AI Copilot that is made available to everybody within the enterprise. So what is the difference between using Copilot as opposed to using ChatGPT? If you've got the free version of ChatGPT, it's not connected to the internet. If you have, or you get limited access through like a trial version of 4.0. If, however, you're using Copilot, its integration in the Microsoft tools, then it is connected to the internet and it gives you more relevant results. Now, I personally like this. I think it's super helpful because if you give it in a narrative form, you don't even have to think about keywords because you can actually talk to the AI, right, in a normal way. If you write, I am researching this area, this is the title, this is what I'm working on, recommend some articles on this topic, Copilot will have a look at what you wrote, will interpret it, and then will look online and give you the 4 most relevant results, and then give you the URLs when you can access these 4 most relevant results, which is terrific, right? So it's a different, more targeted process than Google Scholar that will give you the normal kind of screens of possible results that then you need to sift through yourselves. So I recommend you use both. You use both the functionality in Google Scholar and the functionality that you get through AI tools. You use ChatGPT, or you use Copilot, or you use other available AI tools that, like Bard that Google has and all of that stuff. They all pretty much do the same job. Just be mindful. Is the tool you are using connected to the internet? That's important. So it gives you up-to-date information and then the access URLs. And verify what it says, because on occasion it might get something wrong, or it might give you make up resources that sound nice but are not actually there. I mean, this is happening less and less, but be mindful of the potential of mistakes in the results that the AI is producing. So this kind of gets you on the way of generating your resources. Now, by the way, we've got a few people watching us live here, which is fantastic. Let me know in the chat if you're having issues with generating resources, because people like myself usually assume that as we give you a lot of information about this and we give you access to the library and we introduce the tools, we assume that you guys are getting on okay and you don't have difficulties with the resources, but it is possible that you run into trouble with this. So if anybody's having trouble locating relevant resources, just put a note in the chat and then we'll come back to it later. Now, say that you have started off, you've selected your topic, you've narrowed down a draft table of contents, you know the themes in the areas that you're working on, and you've progressed in your preliminary research, and you have downloaded all these resources, and you have started reading through these papers, and you've got an idea of what's going on. So hopefully this is the stage that you're at already. So for those of you that kind of determined dissertation topics, and we've agreed your dissertation topic in about kind of springtime, April, May, you should be now at a point that you have created like a great deal of literature through the steps that I described, and you're starting to work your way through this literature to understand what is going on and to kind of narrow down what you're talking about. We are slowly getting to the point that you're going to have to write stuff down, and you're going to have to write your own product that then will become the beginnings of your chapters that then come together and become your dissertation. So if is anybody at the writing stage, give me a thumbs up if in the chat, if you guys are already on the writing stage. You know, I have succeeded in my task if you guys have progressed to the writing already. Okay, I will interpret the lack of a thumbs up as an inhibition to participate in the chat as opposed to the lack of writing. All right, maybe. Now, what do we expect when people are writing stuff in a longer project or a dissertation? In a way, we're not expecting anything fundamentally different from what you would be doing anyhow. Give me a second, I need to check something, by the way. Okie dokie. Right, there we go. Here we are. What are we expecting of you guys as you're writing your chapters in the dissertation? And is this any different from other writing that you've done and what you're used to? I don't think it is actually fundamentally different in the writing phase. Now, everybody who's part of a degree structure and has reached the dissertation stage has already been writing quite a lot because you have been through various pieces of coursework. Now, how has it been so far, the coursework? Let me know. Are you happy with if you're happy with the marks you received so far, give me like a happy face. If you are unhappy with the marks that you've received so far, give me a sad face. So I get some indication about how you feel about your writing. But whether you've done coursework on a defined topic that's been given by us that has a small word limit, or whether you're doing a longer project that is controlled by yourselves, is still writing, and it involves probably the same skills and the same processes. So, in terms of the style of writing, we don't expect anything different in your dissertation or thesis from the stuff that we were expecting when you were putting together your normal coursework. So I don't want anybody to be stressed about this and think because I'm now doing my own project and I'm writing my own dissertation, I need to write in a fundamentally different way from other academic products that I have put together. We are looking for a serious, scholarly, academic style of writing, which is pretty much the type of writing that you will find in the sources that you're considering, the books, the articles, the journal pieces, and everything else that you're putting together as your own source material. So it isn't really different to write for a longer piece of work than it is to write for a more defined piece of coursework as we've had in the past. Remember that you need to keep it formal, but remember that also the value of writing effectively in English is in clarity of expression. This is an area where I do have disagreements with my European colleagues. Do we have anybody in the audience who's a scholar that has studied in the continent? Maybe we've got fellow academics in here that kind of thoroughly disagree with me on that stuff. But in the continent and in other languages, if you were writing in Greek or if you were writing in French, sometimes the more complicated your writing, the more scholarly your output. So people think you're more intellectual if you write in a complicated manner. This actually doesn't work in English, right? So what we value in English is clarity of expression. So do not think, especially for those of you who have English as your second language or a third language, do not think that you need to make it sound complicated in order to produce academic writing. This is not what we're after, right? So you need to write in a way that is, of course, official and scholarly. You're not going to use swear words. You're not going to use kind of informal language. You're not going to speak in the first person. So it needs to remain as if you were writing an academic book or you were reading an academic book, but it needs to communicate effectively. So simple and effective communication is not a problem. I'm not going to think that you're not intellectual enough because you're not using a bunch of long words one after the other. And also, keep your paragraphs defined and keep your sentences small. I know that in other languages you can kind of go on a bit, but this is not an advantage when writing in English. So shorter sentences, easier to understand. And something where on occasion I disagree with my colleagues, I like clear signposting. So I recommend using headings and subheadings. I say this to everybody, including the people who write shorter pieces of work, like a 3,000 word coursework. But I will say this to you guys. You are writing a long dissertation. The dissertation is likely to be above 10,000. It's likely to be 12, 15,000 words. You don't really expect me to go through a 12 or 15,000 word piece that is just a continuous line of text, right? Using headings and subheadings is essential in separating not only your chapters, but also separating and signposting the themes that you're working on. There could be a multiplicity of themes even within the chapters. So think about appropriate use of headings and subheadings to signpost to the reader what it is that you're going on about. Remember that your paper needs to make sense in isolation. You will not be there to explain your paper to your examiner. You're going to have to do this by yourself, right? The paper will need to communicate by itself. You are not there physically present to explain things to your examiner. So be mindful to signpost clearly to assist the person to understand what you're putting together. So we're talking about effective writing skills and what we expect of people. We are expecting basically a more extensive version of what you've been doing already, right? You've been writing coursework, you've written successfully. That's why you managed to make it up to the point of your dissertation. So Do what you did, expand on the things that you did well. This is a longer piece of work, so keep your language clear and effective so it communicates well. Do not try and be fancy. What we want is effective communication. Keep your paragraphs clear, keep your signposting good with headings and subheadings, and make sure that you have the experience of the reader in mind when you're producing your work. It needs to speak for itself. It needs to be easy to read. And, even though we try our best, sometimes we tend to fall asleep. So having clear signposting helps to keep your examiner and your reader engaged and alive through this process, which probably results in better marks for you guys, right? Because I know you're not doing it for glory, you're doing it for marks, most of you, we are aware. So a nicely written piece that expresses itself well tends to get better marks. And as I'm talking about this, referencing is important. I'm going to give you a tip here. What is the worst mistake that one can make when writing a thesis or dissertation? What is it? It is one thing that you're going to regret doing for the rest of your lives, and we've all done it. That number one mistake is not keeping appropriate track of your references. And trust me, everybody at some point or other makes this mistake. You're thinking, I'm very much into this. I know what I'm talking about. I know what I'm doing. I'll be fine. I'll get it done. And now I've got one book chapter that I read, and I've got a couple of articles, and then I've got a couple of NGO reports. I remember all that stuff. So when I put it together in my chapter, I'll be able to come back to it, and I'll be able to put in the references later, because now I'm so into what I'm writing, I don't want to waste my time kind of structuring footnotes. I'll come back to it later. Yeah. You know what the later is? The later is you having read 10 chapters from books and 50 articles and about 100 things you downloaded off the web. And now you've put it all nicely together, and you're going to put your references subsequently, and you don't remember where anything came from. Have you already made this mistake? If this is you and this has happened to you, because I'm a victim of this, right? I'm a survivor. If you're a victim of this and this happened to you, put me like a sad emoji in the chat so then we can cry about it together, because you probably know how painful this is already. When I was doing my dissertation, I started off like you guys. I thought, I know the topic, I know what I'm doing, I'm going to be fine. But I wasn't, because I wasn't keeping good track of my references. So then when I had to reverse engineer what I did, you know what I was doing? I was Googling my own stuff, hoping that it was going to hit something that I got from a source so I could put it in there. And it took forever. I kid you not. It took me longer to find the references for what I had written already than it took me to write the thing to begin with. So do not make this critical mistake. How can you avoid it? Anything, everything that you find that goes into your notes, make a little note. It doesn't need to be nicely written, but just put in brackets somewhere, I got this from X book in that page, or I got this from this URL, and put the complete URL, or I found this in page 10 of that PDF, and put the link to the PDF. That way, when you kind of collate these notes and change them and they become material that is inside your chapters, you will carry with you those references, and you'll be able to stick them in properly, and you won't have to reverse engineer your own work. Now, this, guys, is of the utmost importance. And remember, we are marking you of the quality of your references as well as for the quality of what you're writing. This is absolutely essential. You know that ChatGPT can write fairly well, right? Come on, you've used it. You've used it in your... Who's going to have the guts to admit that they've been using ChatGPT to write their stuff in the chat? Go on. Anybody who does this gets some free extra marks. I won't tell anybody you told me. I'm just going to give you a bonus. Yeah? ChatGPT writes very well. What ChatGPT doesn't do is carry the references by itself. So the point here isn't to have a chapter where you go through a couple of pages that are very nicely written. They could be very nicely written by you. They could be very nicely written by somebody else. They could have been very nicely written by ChatGPT. The important thing is not that it's nicely written. The proper thing, the important thing is that it gives us a good impression of the literature that you've been surveying. So it gives us an adequate understanding of the bibliography that is behind your work. You are getting marked on your understanding of the field of study as well as your way to express and rearrange this material and present it for a different purpose. If you don't have your references in order, you are looking at a mere pass at best. And everybody who's in here, you're in here because you want to get the top possible marks out of your efforts for your dissertation. You're not watching this presentation because you want to just scrape through. You're watching it because you want a distinction level mark. And these tips are what is going to give you your distinction level mark. So nobody gets a distinction unless the references are in order. So as you're going through the research steps that I explained before and you're working your way through this, make sure to keep your references with you at every step of the process, from an initial sort of copy-paste of something that you might find interesting to the final produced piece that you've got. Now, there are some online tools that can help you with this. Some of them are recommended by your institution. Some of them you can insert into your word processing software by itself, that they keep track of the references and then they make them consistent in your footnotes. They make them consistent in your bibliography. There's quite a lot of that going on. So if you want to try some of those tools, that is perfectly fine. I personally haven't invested enough time to kind of to select the best one and kind of pick one. I hear a lot of people are using EndNote, and that works well for them. So have a look at that one. So using an online tool to synthesize your references, there's not a problem at all with this, but make sure that you've got the information to begin with. Because if you were not making an accurate record of where you got your information, it's going to be impossible to generate references, even with the help of any online tool you can find. Do not fear the dreaded plagiarism monster. Plagiarism is an accusation that you have used somebody else's work and presented it as your own. Nobody gets done for plagiarism for simply poor referencing or inconsistent referencing or not following the referencing conventions. People that get done for plagiarism are the people who did it on purpose, the people who are trying to cheat. Do not try to cheat. If you want good results, then this should be a genuine attempt at your work. It shouldn't be the entire piece has been produced by ChatGPT and you throw in some references for fun. It shouldn't be asking somebody else to write it. It shouldn't be picking it off the web and copy-pasting it. We will know and you'll get in trouble. But nobody gets in trouble for plagiarism accidentally. And I want you to remember this. Do not be afraid. Work on your research skills, work on your referencing skills, but if it's your own genuine work that is going in there, no crazy lecturer is going to come after you and accuse you of plagiarism. I certainly won't, and I'm probably the one marking your essay, so you can be chill about this. Now, talking about me, it's possible that I am your supervisor for your dissertation. If I am, congratulations, because you don't have a lot of lecturers for doing this stuff on YouTube, right? So you can watch this in bed, or you can watch the replay as you're at the gym. Wouldn't that be fun? Now, establish a relationship with your supervisor. One of the most mind-blowing things about the process of writing longer pieces of work is that all universities, all institutions offer supervision support. If you're doing this as an undergraduate student writing a dissertation, you're going to get an allocated supervisor. If you're doing it as a master's student, you're going to get a supervisor. If you're doing it as a PhD student, you're obviously getting a supervisor. That's where all the money goes. So at every level of study, any sort of research engaged work is benefiting from some sort of supervision that is already paid for. You paid for this already. Yeah? It's part of your degree program. Take advantage of that supervision. I don't get it why people don't. I get allocated like, I don't know, like 10, 15 people, 20 people a year with their dissertations for the master's program. And I get to talk to what, 2 or 3 of them. For some of them, I only hear like, 3 days before the submission deadline that they send me the whole piece and they say, is this okay? Like, and what are we going to do if it isn't? Right? So if you send it to me like kind of last moment, what am I going to possibly do with it if it isn't okay? But all right, that aside, having a relationship with your supervisor can help you in a variety of things, can help you come up with a topic idea to begin with if you're struggling with this. It can also help you define that idea into a table of contents. It can help you refine this. It can help you with locating and finding resources. It can help you get hold of these resources if there's somewhere that your subscriptions are not getting you in immediately, as I mentioned earlier. And crucially, you have the opportunity to talk to somebody to develop the ideas and to test your understanding. It could be that there is something that confuses you in the literature that you don't quite understand, or it could be other things that you need support with, or you need some advice on your writing, or you're concerned about your English, or you're not exactly understanding how to follow the referencing conventions, right? Your supervisor is somebody that you have already paid for and is sitting there waiting to help you. So do take advantage of this and get in touch with your supervisor. But in case I'm the one supervising you, be mindful that I'm be going on vacation at some point because it's the summer. So I have already emailed my students to say these days I'm here, these days I'm not. So if you email me while I'm on a beach somewhere, I am not going to reply to you. So, take advantage of this. Be mindful of the frameworks within which we can offer this support. Now, a couple of organizational tips for you guys as you're going through the process of creating your dissertations. You have to be diligent. I'm not kidding. You have to be super diligent about your record keeping and the organization of your resources. You know what's the beautiful thing about the internet? You find a bunch of stuff. You know what's the horrible thing about the internet? You don't find them again. I don't know why. I've been doing this for donkey's years, and the result is always the same. So you get something, you find something that's really nice, you know the URL, you're hoping to get back to it. When you get back to it in a week time, it has moved address or they took it off the web and you cannot find it anymore. I mean, what is that stuff? Yeah. And I know that there are some kind of look back resources that you have online that you can look at earlier versions of a web page and try and work it out that way, but it does not always work. So what I want you to do is everything that you find, download it and keep it, okay? So make an offline copy. And this is handy with something else that I'm going to tell you about in a moment. So make sure that you keep an offline copy of everything that you find. It could be like a chapter of something you find online. If it's downloadable, download it. It could be that you find an article in a newspaper, get it. Somebody's blog post, get it. Anything that you find there, do a printout of a PDF, not in paper, okay? But do a PDF printout of absolutely everything and put in your notes the URL where you got it from. So that way you're going to be able to reference it. Now, if it subsequently goes offline, you don't care because you can put the URL and the date of access. And you can say, I found that resource on that date with that URL, bingo. You're good with the referencing conventions and you're not going to get in trouble. Right. Now, diligent record keeping and systems where you can find stuff. I think it might be helpful to actually be very wordy in the titles of the files that you're using. So if you have created a folder in your computer that you're saving all your dissertation related stuff, so you can come back to them later, it's probably not a good idea to name them chapter 1 reference 1, chapter 1 reference 2, chapter 2 reference 5, and all of that stuff, because that doesn't make it very searchable, and it makes it a little bit tricky to get to. So give them worthy titles. Just name something. If it's an article by me, say Glinavos Investment Arbitration Article 2016. So when you're looking for that, you can actually put some keywords with the name of the author or the topic or something like that, and it's going to be easier to locate it in your computer. I know that now we've got better functionality where when you're doing a search on your computer, it's looking the wording inside the documents as well. But sometimes, remember this, if you print it on a PDF, it lost some of the formatting, so then the computer cannot read within the PDF to find the keywords. So it's going to give you an advantage if you actually put worthy titles in the file names themselves. It's going to make it easier to find that later. Why do I know that stuff? Because I've been burned by all this stuff. I've made all these mistakes and it's cost me tons of time. That's why I'm telling you guys, so I save you the time so you don't make the same mistakes I did. Because, stupid mistakes like not downloading the resource and not finding it again, like writing the piece and not writing the notes to the reference at that point, like downloading the stuff but not naming them properly, so then they're impossible to find, and you spend ages opening every single one PDF to find out what it's about. These are all avoidable mistakes. So avoid all these mistakes, save your time, invest that time in actually writing your thesis and getting a better mark in the end. Now, I did mention earlier language and expression that has to do with the use of English and how we express ourselves when we're writing these pieces of work. Be clear, keep it formal, keep it clean. I know some people on occasion use inappropriate language. It's baffling, right? Not in the context of your dissertation. When we talk about it, you can tell me how you read something and you find it offensive and you don't approve of it. But, if you have to disagree with an author in the context of your writing, do it in a polite way. Right. And now we're getting to the point that everybody's probably waiting for. To what extent can you use artificial intelligence tools to help you with the production of your research work? Is this what you've been waiting for? Has everybody been sitting in here waiting for me to talk about AI? If you have, and if you're a real person and not a bot, put the thumbs up or give us a like or something. Yeah, who's keen to use artificial intelligence to improve their dissertation? I know I am. Yes, and so should you. Now, what can you use AI? Now, I do have many videos and podcasts about this. I'm going to put the link down in the description. So if you're watching this on the replay or, after this live session is finished, you can follow them up. I've got an entire playlist called GPT University that is giving you all of that stuff that I think is going to come in quite handy because it talks to various skills that are required and how the AI can help you with some skills. But I'm going to give you the compressed version here so you know what we're doing. You do not have the time or the inclination to read very lengthy stuff. I know, because I've been with you guys in your actual classes, and nobody likes to read long documents. So one of the things that you can do, if you have, for instance, the subscription version of ChatGPT, you can upload a PDF and then ask questions. So you could upload an article that you have saved on your computer and say, look through this article and summarize the areas where it talks about risk management, or the areas where it talks about new cases in investment arbitration, or identify areas of disagreement in this literature. Or you can say, just produce a 500-word summary of this chapter, because this chapter has sort of background definitions and information that I could use in my introduction, so I just want a summary. So you can upload your source material that you found in ChatGPT or a similar tool and ask it to look for specific items and give you a summary, or you can ask it to summarize the entire chapter or the entire piece of the book or the article that you're reading. You can ask it to find references, and this is something that I mentioned earlier. So you can say, I'm working on this topic. You can upload perhaps an article as a sample of what you're after, and then ask it to look online to recommend additional resources. Or you can say, look for this author online because they're working on this area, recommend similar things that I might find handy. So AI tools like ChatGPT are fantastic in doing targeted searches, looking for specific resources, finding these resources or connections between these resources, or following authors around as they're working in these areas and recommending this material to you. They're also fantastic in collating information, in summarizing the information, in producing in a nice narrative text collations of the literature and these literature reviews. By the way, that now that I said literature review, if you're doing a dissertation in law, do not, and discuss this with your supervisor if you must, but do not include a separate chapter that's called the literature review. I'm having this problem with my students all the time because people Google format for a dissertation and they're getting draft tables of contents that are suitable for scientific pieces, not qualitative research like we do in subjects like law or in other social sciences. If you're doing qualitative research, meaning that you're basically reading other people's words and reinterpreting them, you don't need to have a separate chapter called a literature review, because everything that you're doing in there is effectively a literature review. Okay? So that's what's going on here. So I find these really awkward dissertations where they've got a long chapter called the literature review, and then you've got another chapter called analysis, and they say the same stuff twice, right? So you don't have to do this. The structure that had literature review at one end and then something else in the other is for scientific pieces where people do empirical research. Pretty much nobody in law does or should do empirical research. Most of the master's level dissertations that we're talking about are not empirical research. You're just looking at other people's work. So they're qualitative research. This is what we do when we look at other people's writing. So if you were doing empirical, you would have, yeah, okay, fine. Literature review, this is how the literature defines and understands the topic. This is the results of my empirical review. And now bringing the two together, I've got a different analysis. This isn't what you're doing, okay? So do not include the separate chapter that's called literature review and then another chapter that's called analysis, and then you kind of repeat the same stuff and you struggle to find a way to say with different words what you've said already in the literature review. If in doubt, contact me directly and we can talk about this, or talk to your supervisor for further information. All right, coming back to the AI tools. The AI tools are great in suggesting where the relevant literature is, and perhaps reading it, summarizing it, and explaining it for you. To be honest, if there are bits of it that you don't understand, you could ask ChatGPT to say, can you express this in a different way? Or can you explain this to me because I don't understand it? Funny enough, if you got ChatGPT on the phone, do you guys have this? This is really, I'm not 100% sure. I think this might be available only if you've got the paid subscription, but I think this is really funny, right? So you can actually have a ChatGPT on the phone and you can talk to it in real time. And latency is very low. So, that means the time for response is actually very low. So you can have like a real ongoing conversation with it. So you could start saying, I'm working into this area, have a look online on what you find, and then I just can't quite understand something. And can you try and explain it to me? And when it explains it to you, if you don't understand it, you can ask it, offer me more explanation. Which brings me back to one of the things that I was talking about, which is how can we use the AI tools effectively for study? One of the key ways in which we can do this is by using the AI tool as a critical friend. Now, I do appreciate the problem that you guys have. Nobody cares what you're doing, right? So you can't find anybody to talk about your dissertation with. This is a problem that every researcher is suffering from. Do you think I got people to talk about the stuff that I'm writing about? Actually, that's why I'm doing this. I'm trying to talk to people on YouTube, right? And I've got a podcast on Spotify where I give kind of long talks about the things that I'm interested in the hope that somebody out of the entire Earth's population is going to express an interest, because it is incredibly difficult to talk about really specialized topics and to find somebody who cares. Now, your job perhaps is a little bit more difficult because not only you're writing the dissertation on something that you came up with that is interesting to you, right? And has a very defined literature behind it, but also all your friends at uni are working on their own little thing. So basically, you've all kind of niched down to something very specific, which means that you have neither understanding of other people's work nor the inclination to actually learn about it. So AI and ChatGPT can be the person that you talk to. So you can use the AI as your critical friend, both to discuss concepts that you're struggling with and to help you understand those concepts, but also to just investigate a little bit more. You can upload your chapters or the things that you're writing on ChatGPT and ask it what it thinks. You can even, and I've got a video about this, I'm going to give you guys the link down in the description later. You can use ChatGPT to offer feedback on the things that you've written already. So you can upload the module handbook with the learning outcomes and assessment instructions. Then you can upload the product of your own work and ask ChatGPT, mark this for me. You can upload whatever marking scheme the university makes available and then say, you've got the handbook, you know the area of study, you've got the syllabus, you've got the marking criteria, and now I've uploaded my essay, mark it for me and tell me what you think. Now, this is a very interesting exercise because even if you disagree with it, it's going to give you some targeted commentary that's going to make you think. And that's the whole process. So if you cannot get any of your friends interested in what you're working on, or your supervisor is not available, or you've bothered your supervisor enough, and you need just some additional feedback or some opportunity to think about what you're working on a little bit further, then ChatGPT can do that for you. So it can be your critical friend, it can be your marker, it can give you some kind of formative feedback. You can do this stuff even with the free version, because I don't want to create the impression here that you guys need to pay for a subscription. Even if you have the free version that you cannot upload the PDF itself, but you need to kind of copy paste the information, you can do it and you can say, this is the area that I'm working on. This is what I've produced. Tell me what you think about it. Yeah. And he will do this. And I think this is going to be very helpful for a lot of people. By the way, has anybody done this already? So from the people that we've got watching us live, have you tried an AI tool like ChatGPT to be your critical friend and to offer some feedback? So let me know in the chat if you've done this, because it is really, I think, a very, very useful thing to do that not everybody is necessarily aware of. Now, if you're worried about issues of academic integrity and whether you're going to get in trouble with the university according to the regulations of plagiarism if you're using AI tools, guidance about this tends to be a little bit vague, but what it boils down to is this the product of your own work? This is what's important. So if you ask ChatGPT to write your essay, you might run into trouble. Now, of course, remember, ChatGPT cannot write your entire essay because it's got, at the moment at least, even for the paid version, it's got about 1,000 words maximum in the responses. So if you have to produce a 15,000 word dissertation, you cannot actually tell GPT, hey, here's my title, produce a 15,000 word dissertation. It's not going to do this. At best, it's going to give you kind of 1,000 word clips that then you need to collate together. And it's not a particularly good way of doing stuff. Actually, if you want to see how this works, I've got some other videos and I've got a podcast where I actually did try and write an entire academic paper together with ChatGPT. So it takes you through the process. And I mean, you can read, I've uploaded my paper online so you can read it and tell me whether you think it's any good or not, or whether it's complete garbage. Now, my view is that It's a bit dodgy, right? It's not very good, but I blame the literature for the fact that it's not particularly good, not ChatGPT. But yeah, I've got some responses in the chat, so thank you very much, guys. Yes, I think using it to review your work and offer you some support in a formative sense as you're going through, using it as your critical friend is amazing. And you can use it to produce some stuff. You can use it to summarize the literature. You can use it for various types of assistance. You can ask it to paraphrase your work. You can use it to alter the style of your work, improve your English, and all this is going to be fine if the source material is primarily yours. So what we don't want is students to produce their work on the basis of prompts without actually putting the effort themselves. So if ChatGPT finds the literature, interprets the literature, writes the piece, produces the references, and the only thing you do is copy paste it into your essay, then it will be difficult to claim that this is your own work. If, on the other hand, you have used the AI tools to assist you with your research or your interpretation or your summarization, you have made this information your own when you're producing your draft, and then you fed it back to the AI tool to improve it, organize it, perhaps change the language a little bit, then that is you working in collaboration with the AI tool to improve on your work, and that will be fine. So depending on which institution you're studying, refer to your university's notice on AI and the use of AI tools. But I think you're going to find that for the majority of institutions, using the AI tool for support is fine. And nobody's going to get in trouble, and we're not going to allege plagiarism or collusion or any of that stuff if you're using it in a supportive role. If ChatGPT is the primary author of your work, then yes, that is trouble. If ChatGPT is the support tool, then it's going to be fine. And, we're not crazy. We know that people are using those tools, but we also have to recognize the potential and the value of those tools. Now, they are fantastically useful. One thing that they do is that they encourage us to be a little bit stricter about some stuff. So poor presentation perhaps can be avoided because now there are so many online tools to help you guys, right? Spelling and grammar mistakes are now so avoidable that if we receive pieces that are full of spelling and grammar mistakes, it puts us in a bad mood and we're likely to give you a worst mark. So avoid these things, and they're easily avoidable, yeah? If you're using Word, you're going to find that there's an editor function that pops up on the right-hand side of your screen that can make spelling and grammar suggestions. Use this. It will help you to improve the style of writing. You can say whether you're writing in a professional or academic style or a more casual style, and it can adjust the style of your writing. And it can also very helpfully offer grammar and spelling recommendations. So because all of that functionality now is embedded and it's free, there is no reason not to use it. So yeah, if you produce something that's full of grammar and spelling mistakes, even if English is not your first language, it's still an avoidable error, and you're gonna lose marks for poor presentation. So use all the functionality that is available, both on the simple stuff like spelling and grammar, and in the more complicated stuff like improving the narrative flow of your piece and improving your expression and all of that. All of that stuff is available to you. You should absolutely use it. Now, some final thoughts about this. Now, what are we doing when we're trying to put together a project or a dissertation? We are doing what we're used to and what we know how to do and what we have done effectively so far in our normal coursework through the course of our degree. We're just doing it on a larger scale. So this means that this task is both familiar and unfamiliar at the same time. It is familiar because you're going through the same processes as before, but it is perhaps unfamiliar because you're doing it at a larger extent. So be prepared for the points of deviation. Be prepared for the larger volume of material that you need to generate and how to control that material, how to Keep it safe, keep it accessible, keep it understandable, how to reference properly, and how to carry this throughout your work. Respect instructions that you've been given in relation to your dissertation. And when we get to the point of you synthesizing this information, think that you need to produce something that takes us a step further from the material itself. So a good dissertation is one that contains an element of analysis and discussion. What does this mean? It means that you haven't simply reproduced a bunch of textbooks that you found out there. It means that you have synthesized this information and made it your own. Remember that we're talking about master's or undergraduate level dissertations. So at that point, you're not expected to make a contribution to the literature. So you're not expected to say something new and mind-blowing. This isn't part of the test. If you were doing an MPhil or a PhD, then yes, you're expected to say something new. But for degree and postgraduate level dissertations, you're just expected to summarize the literature well and then offer a discussion and analysis on the basis of that dissertation. Now, I've got additional videos of what we mean by critical analysis and discussion that I can put some links down in the description for you guys. But this is where the task perhaps differs a little bit from your normal coursework that tended to be a little bit more descriptive. Now, on that point, I'm going to finish this live stream. I hope you guys have a good time being here. I'm very pleased that quite a lot of you were here and we had some interaction in the chat. If you want to pursue this discussion, feel free to put messages down in the comments so we can follow this up. Hit that like button so the video spreads to more people who might find it useful. If I'm personally supervising you, I would love to hear from you guys. So drop me an email as well if you want a personal meeting. And I hope you have a great summer. I hope it gets a little bit sunnier out there because it's still quite grim. And I hope to see you guys soon. Thank you very much for coming and see you next time.